Hey, what's up? It's Jim, and I just got back from the new film Monsters University. Now, this is the prequel to the film Monsters, Inc., and it is Pixar's first prequel. It's sad to see a studio that I once loved, and a studio that I thought could do no wrong a couple of years ago, kind of resort to something like this. Mike Wazowski and J.P. Sullivan, who are voiced again by Billy Crystal and John Goodman. And Mike Wazowski, all his life, has wanted to be a scarer and go and work for Monsters Incorporated. But to do that, you have to go to Monsters University, which is where all the top scarers come from. And he goes and he's very book smart, but unfortunately Mike Wazowski isn't very scary, and he meets J.P. Sullivan. They first get in a lot of trouble and get kicked out of the scaring program, but if their fraternity wins the scaring games, Mike Wazowski tells the headmistress if he wins, will she let him back into the scaring program, and she's like, absolutely. So Mike Wazowski and at this time his rival, J.P. Sullivan, go do the scare games and win them so they can eventually get back in the scaring program and become great scarers at Monsters Incorporated. This just feels like an empty kind of studio film. Frankly, it feels like a direct-to-DVD movie, kind of. A good direct-to-DVD movie. I laughed, I had a pretty good time. I like seeing Mike Wazowski again, and I like seeing Sully again. I love those characters. I loved Monsters Inc. But the thrill and the daringness of Pixar is really gone. I mean, there's no parts in either Brave or this film, and I didn't see Cars 2 because, like, come on, I was Cars 2 for real. There was no parts in that I'd see in Toy Story 3 where the toys are about to go in the incinerator, or the real emotion of the original Monsters Inc. And there's so many moments in Pixar films where I'd just be shocked that, are they really doing this? Like, they're so ballsy to do this. Or like WALL-E had that whole beginning where there's no dialogue. Like, no studio seemed as daring as Pixar for all those years. And now I see Monsters University and it's just going through the motions. It's just sleeping through class. It's resting on the laurels of the genre almost of a Pixar movie. These characters, Mike Wazowski and James P. Sullivan, who we already love, and adhering to the genre of the college movie so paint by numbers and so perfectly. I mean, it feels like they really studied college movies and probably watched Animal House and even College by Buster Keaton. It feels like almost a parody, except it's not a joke. They're not saying anything with it. They just adhered to it so well, it has no life to it. This director is a fine, like, regular kind of studio director, basically. He's like a craftsman, but he's not the kind of amazing Marvel kind of maverick that I'm used to at Pixar. Sure, kids will love this movie, and this is a great kids film, and if you're gonna, I mean, I don't have kids or anything, but I mean, I don't know how many of you watch this who have kids, but I mean, I think kids would absolutely love it, and it's a great animated film, and it's like not the worst animated film of the year or anything, but it's like Pixar put themselves up to such a high standard, and it's kind of sad to see them kind of scale back and just do kind of studio films, you know, just become any other animation studio. I'm just really disappointed in Pixar at this point. When I saw kind of the emotion in Monsters Inc., when I first saw it, I was just taken aback. I don't think like, wow, the power of animation. I just think like, oh, that was funny, that was enjoyable. It is unfair, really, to compare Monsters University and Brave to like all the other Pixar films, which are among the best animated films of all time. And these just really, they're not up to that standard whatsoever. I kind of just wish they would keep pushing it, and I always thought they would. They're making a film a year, and it feels like it's hurting them more than helping them. The end of the third act, I think, is just a total mess, and I'll do a little spoiler section about that. It's just not as well directed, and I think the direction's kind of suffering, and I think the script's not really that great, and the jokes are all right. I think the voice cast is really well cast. I think that's probably the strongest thing about this film is, you know, you have Dave Foley, you have Joel Murray, you have Steve Buscemi, John Goodman, Billy Crystal, Charlie Day, Alfred Molina, Helen Mirren, Aubrey Plaza, John Krasinski. Actually, they find a good way to use John Krasinski, John Rathsberger, of course, Frank Oz, Nathan Fillion, just a great voice cast. And I think it's actually a pretty good studio film. It's just like watching a normal paint-by-numbers, average, coasting studio film from a studio that always seemed to reject those kind of notions is a little sad for me. So I'm going to do a spoiler section. If you haven't seen Monsters University, don't go on because it will ruin it. and I don't want to do that. And you don't, I mean, do you really want to ruin it for yourself? I don't think so. My major problem is kind of the end, and that's why in the spoiler section. The problem with the third act is after they win the scare games, they find out they cheated. It kind of becomes like, oh, well, then they'll do this big thing, and Mike Wazowski goes to the door, and he gets back, and he does, you know, the biggest scare ever. Why wouldn't Monsters Incorporated just hire them then? But then they have to go through the ranks of Monsters Incorporated. Oh, they didn't make it this time, and then again they didn't make it, and then they have to do this also. Like listening to a little kid talk and go like, and then this happened, and then that happened, and then this happened. I didn't understand why after the door thing it couldn't have ended, and even that was kind of too much of a continuation. It just felt really tacked on. It didn't feel like earned or like it really made sense to the structure. It just felt kind of just like so plastered on there. So if you have seen Monsters University and you would like to talk about it, then comment below in the comments and subscribe if you would like to.